Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cornering the Job Market for August 13th, 2025. I'm Pete from Four Corner Resources, and here are the five headlines you need to know for today. First, according to the Wall Street Journal, AI is forcing the return of the in person interview. Who saw that coming? Well, I did because it's a necessary part of the job process. But there's widespread concern over virtual fraud, and it's increasing constantly with AI. What's happening is many candidates are exploiting AI tools during virtual interviews. They're using off camera assistants and AI generated responses and even deep fake impersonation. And it's happening a lot in technical roles. So I own a staffing company. A lot of what we do is IT. And when I speak to my peers around the country, this is rampant. And we don't see it, truth be told, a lot from my business, but I hear it on almost every call I have with my peers, and it's getting worse and worse as AI continues to improve. So the surge in digital deception is raising serious integrity concerns, to say the least. And it's big companies who are leading the change, and that's who needs to lead the change, right? If it's small companies doing it, then employees or job candidates won't be as attracted to them. But it's companies like Google and Cisco and McKinsey who are reinstating in-person interviews. So that is going to be interesting to see as it changes. So first we had return to office. Now we have return to in-person interviews. And listen, I'll tell you, I've always considered it an integral part of the hiring process to get your eyes on someone who you're considering for a job. It's one thing to speak with them over the phone, but reading body language, engaging their interest when you are sitting across from them is a huge piece of the recruiting process. And it shows that a candidate is genuinely interested in a job. And as a candidate, I would think you'd want that involvement from your potential employer. So, yes, it's extra effort, but we're talking about your employment here or your new employee if you're the organization. So, that effort should be inherent in the process, in my opinion. So I know not everyone will agree with me on that, but that's okay. It's always been a part of my team's recruiting process and something that I found that really increases our chance of success along the way. Now, second headline is similar. Is that Gartner just did a survey they published a couple of days ago saying that 26%, only 26% of job seekers trust AI to evaluate them fairly in the process, in the hiring process specifically. So they consider it a huge red flag when employers use automation for screening. So how about that? First headline shows that companies don't like AI. They don't trust what candidates are doing. And now candidates are saying they don't trust what the employers are doing. So this survey found that over half of the applicants believe AI is looking at their resume and they don't like it. And a third worried that it will reject them for the wrong reasons. And even worse, 1 in 4 candidates say knowing AI is involved actually makes them trust the company less. Wow, that's kind of scary. So if candidates don't want that in the process, I can tell you definitively companies are absolutely using AI in their hiring process and have every intention of increasing their use of it. So it's a dilemma. The respondents, did say they want candidates to be transparent about how they use AI. They want rules, and they want safeguards for things like identity verification, or even this is just coincidental. I thought they even crave in-person interviews at times. So it's funny to see on social media, candidates really don't like when companies put expectations on them during the interview process because they feel like they're frequently ghosted and they don't really feel like they should put forth effort when the companies, they just don't trust the company. So I talked yesterday about the need to increase just the relationship as a whole between employers and employees. I think transparency is the biggest way that will happen. So it's nice to see that the candidates in this survey said they want that transparency. So I hope that ultimately we can get to a place of more trust and openness where AI is going to be used. I think AI has benefit on both sides of the equation. It certainly increases efficiency in the recruiting process. My team is constantly trying to find better ways to use AI to make us more efficient and to make us more effective. One of the problems that I've been frustrated with for years is how technology has allowed the application process to be so easy with one click applies through websites like Indeed and LinkedIn, where yes, there's no effort for the candidates, and I get why they wouldn't want to put it forth when they don't have a reason to. But what happens is recruiters get flooded with hundreds and sometimes thousands of applications of people who are not qualified in any way for the job. And so the right candidates, the ones who are a good fit, get lost in the shuffle. And that's what most recruiting organizations or corporate HR organizations who recruit heavily are using AI for, is to try to get the right candidates to the top. So I assure everyone listening, the intentions are good. No one wants to ghost candidates. No one wants to be seen as a bad company where that will damage their reputation among job seekers, even the ones they're not going to hire. No one intends to do that, but it becomes a numbers game, and it is very, very difficult to keep up with the resumes and the applicants when there's so many that aren't even close to being qualified for the job. So, look, I'm a fan of intimacy in the recruiting process, one-to-one relationships. If you are applying for a job, I recommend highly you pick up the phone, you try to speak with the recruiter live. That expresses a sincere level of interest. Recruiters appreciate that. And so I like kind of seeing, even though this anti-AI movement in these first two headlines. So look, 62% of job seekers say that they'd be more likely to apply if they knew there'd be an in-person step in the process. So there we go. There's your AI update for the day on the job interview process. But also, this was a really interesting article that a former Google executive, Mo Gaudat, if I pronounce his name right, is pushing back on the idea that AI will be a net job creator. Now, I agree with that. I think that it is very dangerous. This sentiment that AI is not going to replace jobs. I believe the opposite is true. And this guy is, I don't know what role he had at Google. It says he's an executive. I don't know to what degree in the article that I read, but he argues that AI is already replacing human roles and warns that even C-suite executives are not immune to being displaced by sophisticated AI systems. So he says CEOs are celebrating that they can now get rid of people and have productivity gains. By the way, I don't think CEOs are celebrating that they can get rid of people. I think it's a harsh reality at times if technology can replace what someone does and you have a business decision to make. But I don't think they're celebrating the loss of jobs. I just don't know anyone that heartless. But that these productivity gains and cost reductions are, they're celebrating them. So he says, because AI can do the job. But the one thing he goes on to say that they don't think of is AI will replace him too, and that AGI is going to be better at everything than humans. Okay, AGI, when it gets here, which we don't know if and when that will happen, probably eventually, but it's not necessarily around the corner. But he says that it even includes being a CEO, and you have to imagine there will be a time where incompetent CEOs will be replaced. Now, look, it's a headline grabbing quote. I imagine a time right now where all incompetent CEOs should be replaced. So I don't think that's something we have to look in the future for. Look, he says he's an ex Google executive. Maybe this guy is just trying to gain attention by making some statements that some people consider to be outlandish. But yeah, I mean, it is a real thing that AI is replacing jobs. And so more light needs to be shed on that. I do support that. But is it going to replace CEOs anytime soon? I don't know. Hopefully not the good ones. Not yet anyway. Until AI is so advanced where we can all just sit on the beach and let it do the work for us. We'll see. We're not there yet, but it's once again worth paying close attention to. The next headline is that President Trump has picked EJ Antoni to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Very publicly fired the BLS head recently after the revised job data. Um, no surprise in President Trump fashion, he is putting in someone who is already coming out swinging with somewhat of a controversial take by suggesting that um, he intends to replace what is really widely watched monthly jobs reporting with more accurate, although significantly less timely, quarterly data. That's his proposal following the recent criticism about the BLS's revisions to the job numbers, which of course is sparked a big debate about the reliability of the job data, which I question. I've questioned for years. I don't think it's accurate, but I don't think that monthly reporting versus quarterly is the problem. What I've always wondered, if they want to get it right, is why not just delay the report until they know the numbers are accurate? And the reason is because they don't want to do that. They want the big headlines. The BLS and whoever is in charge at the time wants to put out wonderful job data that shows we're growing and adding lots of jobs, and then quietly revise them after the fact and show that, wait, maybe we didn't add as many as we initially said. So I'm on the side of thinking that it's not an inability to report accurate job data. I think it's an unwillingness to. And so if you really want to get it right, you don't need to go from monthly to quarterly. Just delay it another week, delay it 2 weeks, delay it a month behind if you need to. But this data is important and we should have data that we can trust. It matters a lot. It matters for decisions on hiring and spending and how, as a business, you should feel about the economy as a whole. What's happening in the job market is a significant, it's a massive, it's more than just significant, it's a massive indicator of how things are going. And the government should make a better effort to get it right, or we should just collectively decide that we're not going to trust them and figure out a way to do it in the private sector, because we know that when you do things in the private world, it always works out better and more efficiently than what the government's doing. But the pick is in. We'll see how long it takes to become official in that role and what changes he looks to make. But here's some positive news with the fifth headline for today. July Optimism Index is published by the NFIB, which is a National Federation of Independent Business. Their Optimism Index rose 1.7 points in July, which is the highest market's been since February, and it continues a 3-month streak of above the 52-year average. 52-year average, that's a really long average, of 98. So what that says is basically that small business owners are feeling optimistic. We like that. We'll see if that continues. But NFIB chief economist Bill Dunkelberg said, while uncertainty is still high, the next 6 months will hopefully offer business owners more clarity, especially as owners see the results of Congress making the 20% small business deduction permanent and the final shape of trade policy. So the survey had lots of data, and we'll link it in the video. I recommend everyone go look at it. It's really interesting. But what I found most curious from it was not the optimism. That's great to hear. But what stuck out to me is that 33% of participants reported job openings they couldn't fill, that they can't fill their jobs. So a third of these small businesses are saying they can't fill jobs. Now, if you spend any time on LinkedIn at all, and in my world, I do, you see that candidates are having a really tough time in the job market. So we already talked about some of the reasons why with AI kind of make it difficult for everyone, and technology somehow making us less efficient versus more. But that is no excuse for a third of companies saying they're having trouble filling jobs. I want to know who they are. So if you are watching this and you know where job openings are being unfilled, let me know. Let's get that word out there, because what I see is a whole lot more candidates looking for jobs than companies having a difficult time filling them. And I just have to question where that is coming from. And I'm genuinely curious to know. So I would love any feedback on that. So there are your 5 headlines for today. Here is your job related fun fact from history, because I promise to do that every day that I can. The term freelancer It originated in the early 19th century, coined by Sir Walter Scott in his novel Ivanhoe to describe medieval mercenary warriors who offered their lances for hire to the highest bidder. So I think of hired gun. We hear that term. Well, this was pre-guns. Actually, it wasn't. Guns existed then, but freelancers offer their lances as mercenaries to the highest bidder. I like it. That's kind of what a freelancer is. But I didn't know that. Being in the staffing industry as long as I have, you think I would be aware of where terms like that come from. But now I do, and now you do. So thank you for listening today. Please like the video if you've watched it, share with anyone you think might be interested, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you'd like to hear. And I'll talk about that as best I can going forward. Thanks for listening.